tardes. Good afternoon to you all. This is Raffaella Leproni, a professor at the Università degli Studi Roma 3, and Mireia Canals Botines from the University of Vic, Central University of Catalonia. So we are here to offer you a brief explanation of our research, latest research, which is how to teach creativity and didactics to write children's stories with a pedagogical aim. This is an international blended course case study that has been taking place for 3 years now. And well, we just wanted to contribute with this research and explain it to you. So thank you, and here we go.
Buenas tardes. As my colleague Mireia said, we want to show you how we tried to comply to national indications which suggest that teaching to learn should be paired with teaching to be. Our students are going to be teachers in their turn. So our mission as educator is to prepare them and provide them instruments and tools to do their job at their best. The lab we are talking about this year included 76 students of primary education in the fifth year, and they are student teachers. The teachers involved in the activities were myself as a curricular teacher and other guests from international projects, among which Professor Canals Botines. The intent was to foster internationalization and interculturality. So all the activities, including webinars, the forum, and the tasks assigned, were meant to provide students with instruments to cope with this perspective. So the focuses of the lab were on teacher self-assessment, the use of authentic materials, the use of content and language integrated learning, and storytelling. This has been done keeping in mind task-based learning and experiential learning techniques. And again, the focus was on building, projecting, and feeling together, establishing web relationships. The aims of the lab were conveying a sense of extended community, belonging, and participation to share goals towards a responsible citizenship. This was done to try and develop a form of observational learning, a situational learning, and a community of practice, to understand how teachers work together at a distance to plan, create, implement, and manage intercultural learning. So the lab has been structured into 4 different units. Each unit included online resources and live meetings. So the materials to study, which were provided to the students, PPTs, video lessons, document texts, and various other things, were the basis for the practical tasks that students had to accomplish to obtain the lab grade. The first 2 units dealt with the importance of second language teaching and learning and focused simultaneously on 2 levels, university students and primary school pupils' needs and characteristics. So the path, the tools, and the materials provided were meant at teachers' self-evaluation and assessment strategies. Unit 3 and 4 instead dealt with 2 international projects. The first one was storytelling for second language teaching, and it was carried on with the University of Vic and Professor Canals Botines. And the other project was Hands of the World, Can You See What I Say? An e-twinning project carried out with the University of Dundee and Professor Tony Saunders. The task-based activities included self and peer-directed assessment questionnaires, story writing, and video recordings of different sessions, including games, singing, and creativity. The outputs were also meant as an assessment for the students. And we tried to develop motivating challenges to tackle the future teachers' fears of being engaged into intercultural activities, international projects, and of course using English, which is usually a big issue for them. But it also serves as further research basis. and it also helped to teach them how to use their own production for research. Of course, the pandemic worsened the standard issues that teachers meet when foreseeing activities and producing their materials. First of all, because both we teachers and the pupils were exposed to an enormous amount of self-e-teaching. We had to learn before we could teach. And of course, all the materials provided, the lessons we performed, and the support we tried to give them was provided via mostly unexplored channels. We had never done this before. The courses had to be restructured on e-didactics modality, and we had to cope with different needs, both as a technical level and at an emotional level, and both on the teacher's side and on the student side. So what to do? We tried to implement strategies which could set an example to our learners on how to perform the same job at a different level. And as I said, we try to focus on building a facilitating environment which could allow to learn competencies as well as notions, and which could foster learning readiness, which is the maturity necessary to assimilate new contents through listening and performing, those knowledge, abilities, and behaviors that should be acquired before the intervention in order to construct the preconditions for future education interventions. How we did it, how to do it, this is a challenge. We wanted to enhance language competencies, so we set up activities aimed at this goal. And the other important element was providing students with methodological skills and examples of how to engage their own pupils into intercultural projects using e-learning and distance learning. So we tried to construct an intercultural communicative language learning and teaching aimed to teach culture as well as developing linguistic abilities alongside intercultural communication through e-learning.
Okay, as for the storytelling part, specifically, a questionnaire had to be fulfilled, and students had to just to finish, and the results are still being assessed at this moment. But then, following some teachers' guidelines that were given at the beginning, students were asked to reflect on different structures and some innovative strategies for storytelling. And it was this double perspective of students and student teachers. Then some PowerPoints were given to them as an introduction to understand how to construct a story. There was a sort of theoretical framework in relation to English literature and children's literature, topics, characters, and critical literature, for them to have the framework. And then they were taught about structures of stories. Two main structures, the causal structure and the descriptive structure, and also to explain this was compulsory for them to understand how to construct a story, the concept of a base chain, which is the sort of formula that they had to use to create a story. Then, as for the task, they had to write a short story for children, maximum 1.5 pages, and in the form the student liked. So it was open to narration, poem, nursery rhyme, song, whatever. But the compulsory part was to follow a base chain given. So this was the main challenge, just to write a story for and with the L2 classroom. So using a platform forum, and they could interact at a distance and then share documents and comments, and so it was a sort of co-construction. And it was a task-based learning and cooperative learning, because students had to use English to write the stories in English, and so they improved their competences both in the written and in the oral level. And then there was peer review and peer assessment. So As the task results is concerned, students created 28 stories in subgroups of 2 or 3 people each, and 6 items were evaluated, so to explore the extent of the students' creativity, and also to understand what they had interpreted as potential by using the stories and to develop linguistic awareness and also this extra linguistic competence in the pupils. So the narrative structures mostly used for them was the negative to positive causal structure. That means that the story ends well, ends badly, sorry, and then at the end there is a final turning point that makes the story to end positively. And this is also linked, as you will see, to the age of the pupils. That was 5 to 7 mostly. And then also the narrative structure descriptive, which is also mostly used between 5 and 7 and 11 and 12 for clear stories, or either for only descriptive stories which have no suspense in it, and then it seems easy for younger students. The protagonists for the most common protagonists in the stories were girls and boys, and so co-protagonists. Then also fairies and rabbits, curiously, but humanized animals were mostly used also. And as for the format of the story, the narration was basically the format mostly used, but there were also some surprises, also poems with music, rhyme, rhythm, and materials, and also some picture books, also to enhance the drawing on the kids when they also understand the story, and so they can do some post-reading activities after all. The conclusions, the project led students to experiment on themselves, strategies and activities that they may propose to their pupils, so it was very enriching in this part. Also the difference of language command and scaffolding instruments considered, and also met different cultures and backgrounds, experiencing intercultural partnership. So this was take part into this international research and didactic project was really interesting for them and also for us, and also replicate or modify the format in their own teaching, possibly creating these nets with homologs from other countries, the e-twinning also, that was fostered basically by e-twinning. And then rethink this self-analysis and as well as this self and peer assessment in terms of both teaching and language expertise. Then also the active role of the students participating individually and also in small groups, 2 or 3, depending on the number of students in the group, and also content development, experimentation of competences, sharing experiences between teacher and pupils. That was really nice, and also among peers. Then satisfying cognitive, social, and affective development, and then ICT skills and competencies that was really improved. And then language skills improvement, and also this intrinsic motivation fostered emotional awareness, and then this creativity. This is probably the most relevant topic of this research and this task. That was because, well, everything is surrounded by creativity. So enhancing creativity, that was probably the most conclusive aspect of this research and collaborative project, after all. So these are some references that we have been using, as you can see, and that you will find in our written research paper. And well, thank you very much for listening to us. And we are open here. You have our contacts, Dr. Leproni and mine, so you can contact us anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much.